Welcome to the Property Founders Podcast. Oh, you need the
just
logo.
Put it up. No,
just having some technical difficulties from Mr. Agbaje. Mr. Agbaje. Is it Agbaje or Agbaje? You know, how do you say that name? How do you say that name, man?
Okay, so welcome to the Property Founder Podcast. My name's Ross.
My name's Andrew. Do I say my surname? No. I'm Andrew Oaken, by the way.
Ross Agbaje. And together, obviously, we're the host of the Property Founder Podcast. And this podcast has been created to hopefully, I guess, provide value into the space from running a property management company and also being business owners.
Yeah. Is it like a podcast or is this, every now and then? I don't want to be a podcast guy,
I don't want to be a podcast guy, but I feel like there's a lot of value that you can share just by talking.
Yeah, to be fair. So I think whenever we want to sit down, to be fair, like this is just going to end up being a conversation we normally have on the phone every now and then.
True.
And we just end up talking for like 2 hours randomly, and it's like our minds are blown. And we need to get to it. So
I think so. But yeah, maybe monthly.
Yeah, probably.
I think monthly.
And then we can just invite someone.
Target. Yeah. So we'll be having guests on who also are property founders, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, hope you get value from this episode and the future episodes to come.
Yeah, and anyone that's watching, you could be anywhere in your journey. So you could be starting out on your property journey, or you could be someone that's in the game for a number of years and hopefully you find value in some way. But this was primarily created to, again, share what we're doing, kind of give you a bit of a behind the scenes, share our learnings, insights, but also anyone that's new, they can take something from anyone that they see on this podcast and anything they hear. So
cool, man. So I think a question most people that probably know us but don't essentially know us intimately ask me and you is, how do we meet? So I don't know if you want to kick that off.
In a strip club. No, I'm joking. How did we meet? We met in Hackney. We don't know the precise date or time of when we met. I don't even know if we know the age, but we know we was in primary school.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Same estate, Nightingale Estate precisely. So that's in Clapton. Kind of it's Lower Clapton, isn't it?
Lower Clapton, yeah. Well, Clapton Pond, isn't it?
Because that's like the in between, isn't it?
Clapton,
yeah. I never
Pond.
associate with either or. I was just like I felt like I was right in the middle. But yeah, definitely like Clapton anyway. So that's where we grew up. And in terms of that, I couldn't tell you the exact day of when we met, but I knew you used to come to my school. So I went to Baden-Powell Primary School, which actually got knocked down. Well, it got closed down, I think it was a few months ago, actually.
No way.
Did you know about that? Yeah, no. I think last year there was a closing down party for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I remember I saw Jelani that day and I was like, where are you coming from?
Wow.
And he was like, there's a closing down.
I feel like it's a bit sad.
It's
a bit sad,
Yeah, it is sad, man.
Do you know why? Because my secondary school's completely changed. Obviously, they've moved Cardinal Pole, but where it was, the origination, Kenning Hall Road. No, not Kenning Hall Road.
No, that's mine, yeah.
Kenworthy Road, yeah.
I remember the lower school of
Cardinal Pole.
I used to be scared of it. I used to think it was Hogwarts.
No, but it was haunted though.
Is it?
Yeah, like they actually used to say it was haunted. And in one of the head teacher's office, because I've been there many times, there's like a place upstairs in the top of the building where they used to send you if you're bad.
Wow.
And honestly, that place there, you don't want to be there by yourself. But that building, honestly, do
you know why? Because my uncle lived behind it. So every time when I was younger, we used to go, I used to look at this. I used to basically look at the left. So imagine his apartment's on the left, right? And the right is, you're basically seeing the back of the school, but I didn't know what it was at that time. So I remember looking at the right, I said, that place just looks haunted. So I never used to look. I'd come up the stairs and I would run to his door, just so I didn't see it. And when I was leaving, I was kind of like, had to brace myself.
It's proper like that?
Oh, mate.
Wow.
And then I grew up to find out that was Cardinal Pole. But then the fact that you're saying it's haunted and you've been in the building, that's crazy.
Yeah. Because you know what it is? There's like cellars, but the cellars were like music rooms and like the canteen. But then just the whole building, the whole aura of the building was just so weird. Yeah. And it was only year 7 and year 8. So again,
that's so random, like how we were talking a podcast and we learned something.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, but anyway, so I went to Baden-Powell Primary School. You went St. Celestica's, which is around the corner. And yeah, like used to come to our after school club. but we may have met playing out in the area. 'Cause that's how
I think the main way we met was probably playing in Nightingale Park, which was really just like, I look back and I'm like, those were amazing times.
Yeah.
It was like a park with, it's literally in the middle of the estate, so all the houses are actually looking on that park as well.
Yeah.
So it was a case where all of our parents would let us play out because
they actually had an eye on you as well. From afar, they'd be like, "Oh, that's my kid there." So you didn't need a phone or anything. So that's where we would just go out and play.
Yeah. And that's pretty much where everyone, I guess, linked up.
Yeah, and then I guess when people wonder like, how do we get into business, or like, how did our cross pass rather than path, was in network marketing. So do you want to speak more about that, like how you got into it?
Yeah, so I think one day one of our good friends, Suleiman, literally came back to my estate and he was like, guys, I've got a business opportunity, like and it was funny because when he mentioned it, like everyone's all calling around like, oh, has Suleiman showed you the plan? And at the time when I was hearing the plan, I'm thinking, what is this plan? Like, is he gonna rob a bank or something? And then when they eventually sat me down and showed me what the business model was, obviously it turned out to be network marketing, multi-level marketing. And yeah, that was kind of, for me, I guess I was always interested in business. So the financial element intrigued me, but also being a business owner essentially intrigued me as well. And it sounded like a good opportunity. But I think what really sold me was the mindset element. Yeah. Like when I went to a few trainings and kind of heard a few speakers, it was that concept that came from Rich Dad Poor Dad was employee, small business owner, big business owner, 100%. Investor. And that was really what got me thinking, okay, I don't want to be on the employee or small business owner side. I want to be on the big business owner, investor side. So I kind of saw that as, this is me transitioning over to that path. Yeah.
You talked about business as well. Like, what was your main motivation in business? And what motivated you to get into business?
I say motivated me, money. Like, from young, obviously, I used to work in the local estate agents. I say the local news agents in our area. And I just remember being able to buy magazines, which was something that I enjoyed, and you needed money to do that. So my main motivation was money. Yeah. And I guess a secondary element of that was the fact of being an entrepreneur, like being able to turn nothing into something, I guess. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's funny because, like, also I did network marketing as well. I don't know if we probably joined around a similar time, to be fair. Like,
I think so, yeah. So Suleiman showed me, and then obviously another friend of ours, Shalom, joined, and then I believe Shalom introduced you. Yeah. Shalom brought you down, and then you joined. I think I joined in June 2014. So you maybe joined.
I joined in August.
Okay.
Should it was 2013? I think it was 2013.
2013?
Yeah, it was.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it was, because I remember I was in the business for about 2.5 years, and I left it early 2016.
Ah. Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, regardless. But I remember I joined August because I heard it in June. That's when I came back from France. So I was studying abroad, and then Shalom just kept saying, I need to show you something I'm working on. But Shalom is just as a comedian, so anything is there, I'm like, I'm just going to meet up with him and laugh. But then I remember the first thing I saw when I met him, I was like, why are you in a suit, bro? But he did not react to it. So I said, okay, that's strange. Like, normally Shalom's a banterous person, but he's not reacting to the fact he's in a suit. But I'm just also taking it in because he was working at solicitors then. So when he's brought me into, what's the cafe on Clapton Pond? Havana's. Yeah. So he brought me to Havana's, sat down. I'm like, cool. Show me this whole thing. Again, I wasn't expecting any of this. So I was like, oh yeah, this seems cool. Didn't think he was even asked for money. He was just like, just going to be showing this around, man. If you're interested, let me know. I was like, yeah.
Shalom didn't close you properly.
He didn't close me at all. I left that meeting just thinking, that's it. And then he was trying to get me to come to like the training, but I was like, nah, I'm just busy. I had things that I was doing, so it just wasn't really top of mind. I was thinking, what training do I need to come to regarding this thing? But then when I met Keith, that was the time when I was like, okay, penny dropped. And I remember going home that day, calling all my boys like, bro, we're living a life. Like there's really multi-millionaires out here. They're making money in ways that you can't even imagine. We're thinking like, we're at uni as well, most of us. So we're just talking about graduating and getting a job. And to be honest, around that time I was thinking, I don't even know if I want to pursue a career here. Like the numbers weren't motivating. The career path wasn't motivating either. So I wanted to get into finance slightly, just because of the numbers. And I had older cousins that were investment bankers. So yeah, that was, I guess for me to then decide to get into network marketing was that meeting. After that, I was like, whatever money I have, I'm gonna.
Do you think it was essentially the person that sold you an opportunity?
It was the person, and I was like, whatever opportunity. So it was definitely the person, but it was like whatever opportunity was there, I'll take it. Because at that point, I didn't have any opportunity, but I had the motivation. Had I had that same inspiration that happened to me there, I would have tried to figure something out. Like I would have went online and said, all right, what do I need to do with business? And my mind would have been thinking on a certain business model. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's interesting though, because I feel like with network marketing, I feel like it came to us. Whereas probably when it came to the property side, which we're doing now, that's probably something we actually went out looking for.
Yeah.
And most people kind of go through that phase of going down the rabbit hole of thinking, okay, I need to earn some extra money, or I want to set up a business. And then they go into that, and then it's really just a case of who they come across.
Yeah.
Because if they come across a certain type of person, like we did with network marketing, that has the lifestyle, is probably financially free, retired, then they're most likely going to do whatever that person's doing.
Yeah, it's true.
I guess.
And it's funny because even though we've like titled this the property founder podcast, whatever you want to call it, there's always a difference between the property founder and the property investor, right? Because there is a founder mindset that's different to an investor mindset, right? They can kind of sometimes correlate in some parts, but ultimately you're trying to, I wanted to distinguish the two and say, look, listen, a property founder, we looked at this as a business that we were looking to grow, as opposed to just simply an investment, which most people want to get into property. Like even when we think about it, the times when we were doing network marketing as well, like when we used to speak to a lot of people, remember Shalom's thing, he's like, he just wanted to buy a house and sit in the living room. Didn't care about furniture or anything. He's just like, yeah, I just want to buy a house and live in it. I was like, okay. But most people want to acquire a certain amount of money so they can buy a house, right? But then we then learned that you don't need that, right? And I think that's what blew our mind. And when we realized we didn't need to do what we were doing right now in order to get there, that's when we're like, actually, this is it. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And
I think, so let's probably talk on that then. So how did we get into property? Which is what most people, I guess, wonder. But it followed on from the network marketing company. So I remember coming towards the end of our time there, a friend of ours picked up a newspaper, the Metro newspaper, and in it was Robert Kiyosaki's face on one of the pages. And I remember seeing it, and it was a free event somewhere in central London, at one of those hotels. And we ended up going. So it was me, you, Suleiman, and Chris, I remember at the time. So we headed down there. And that was really our first interaction with the whole property industry, I guess. Yeah,
anything in terms of like the sales aspect, just understanding the process, even how to buy a house, like mortgages, everything.
It blew me away. Because in my head, I don't know why we didn't. Well, I guess how old were we? We were kind of early 20s, right? Yeah, early 20s. But it's so crazy now to think that the knowledge that people starting out in property have now, they're probably getting this knowledge at like 16, 17, 18, and they have access to it. Whereas for us, it took us until 22 to even just have a basis understanding of property. But that event was just crazy. They broke down the whole buy, refurbish, refinance model. Yeah. And when I learned that you could buy a property, refurb it and refinance it and pull your money out, I didn't understand. Like, I was like, how are the government allowing people to do this? Because I thought surely that's a loophole, right? Yeah. Like, you're putting money in, but you're getting the money out. but it's fully legit. And then once I kind of learnt what remortgaging was, that's when it was like, okay, it made sense. So yeah, what did we do after that event?
Yeah, I remember even before like the event, thinking that we're going to see Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, so did I actually.
Because it was a Rich Dad Poor Dad event.
I actually thought the
That's
same.
what brought us into going.
Yeah.
Again, we always, at that time, I think the climate was you were always getting approached by somebody about an opportunity. But lucky enough, this was someone that we knew, that already were working with. So where he's spoken about something, and I used to always have a lot of conversations about what other things we're going to do. So where he brought this, there's a Rich Dad Poor Dad event, let's just go see what it is.
And we were fully sold on Robert Kiyosaki,
Yeah,
innit? Robert Kiyosaki was like the pinnacle of...
Robert
Who is he
Kiyosaki?
now today? Who would you say is in that same position today as a Robert Kiyosaki? You say Grant Cardone?
In the property space? Or do you mean in general, in business in general?
Because Robert Kiyosaki is property, but he is kind of business, but also just mainly financial education, isn't it?
Just who is a financial education person? I don't know. I think a business person you would probably look at as like maybe an Alex Hormozi,
Yeah, fair.
possibly. Would you look at him in that maybe same light?
100%. But because Robert Kiyosaki goes heavy on property, that's why I guess.
But probably you would say Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Generally,
some
most
of that.
people that are in property, you will know Grant Cardone. So for us at that time,
He was.
that was our only exposure to it, right?
Yeah,
We didn't know anything else other than me playing Monopoly. But aside from that, once I got told about the event anyway, I decided, I'm definitely going to this. Let's see what we're going to learn there. But fundamentally, I'm thinking I'm going to take a picture of this guy. And then I remember just seeing this like English lady stood at the front, just talking about property. But within seconds, once you know that this isn't like he's not coming, but they're teaching you something here, that's when I was like, okay,
Still going to get educated. Still going to learn something. So let's stay.
But I just remember being blown away, having Suleiman and myself had a Amex in our pockets. Because at the end, they were selling us a course that must have been like 10, 15, maybe 20 grand.
It was
I can't
20K,
remember.
20K or 25K.
And I was like, what? Like, where are you going to get that money from? Now, obviously, our mindsets are very different. I'm even glad we didn't do the course because it taught us how to be resourceful. Like, rather than just think, we don't know anybody, we said, okay, we're not going to spend 20 grand. Like, imagine all four of us went and spent 20. That would be insane.
When I actually look back at it now, those events are very smart in their targeting.
100%.
They're really targeting people that have been working, probably in the workforce for a couple of years, maybe like late 30s, early 40s, or maybe even older. But it's people that earn a wage, have access to capital. So to them, being able to get maybe like 20 or 25 grand
it's not an issue
on a credit card, or even have it, is not an issue.
Yeah, but for us then it was like, what the hell? My credit limit was like 1,200. So someone's talking to me about 20 grand. I'm like, how am I going to get that? But it's funny you say that because they targeted people in the workplace, but we came with a mindset that we don't want to work, right? Like we had already been told and taught about it through our training at network marketing. Is like, listen, most people are just working in a 9 to 5. And again, look, I'm not saying there's everything bad about 9 to 5, but if that's all you know and that's all you want to do, for us, that's not what we bought into. And to come to another event where it's a different industry, remember, because at that time there was a lot of companies like that with network marketing that were just talking about that. But to go to a completely different industry and they're still talking about, hey, I left my job through property, you're like, oh, so why are we doing what we're doing here? Like, actually go and do this.
True.
So I just remember my mind being blown. And then we went out and sat in the lobby area. And I remember Suleiman saying to us, he's like, this is it, guys. But at that moment, it's like the penny dropped, you know. That was like the number one thing for me at that time. Where, like, we are going into property. Let's just figure it out. Because we was at that time where we're just trying to figure out a business idea.
That's exactly what I was just going on to.
We were just trying to find
We were in the phase of, because we were leaving network marketing or had left, we were kind of like in the phase of what's next.
What do we do?
And we knew that we definitely wanted to get into property. But it was a case of, how do we do this? And I feel like a lot of people go through this phase of figuring out. Like, they're in the... what's that word? That phase of kind of trying to see what are the opportunities out there and what can I do. And we stumbled across so many things. We wanted to...
I remember that charity we tried to set up some nonsense.
We wanted to go and talk in schools.
For what?
To inspire the youth. When we hadn't even done anything. I mean, the idea behind it was good.
Yeah.
But then when I think about it now, it makes me laugh so much because we met up in... was it Hackney Cinema?
No, I think we met up. Oh yeah, it was Hackney Cinema.
Yeah, Hackney
and
Cinema.
We were meeting up in Premier Inns.
Premier
Inns. Trying to
Inns.
figure this out.
But we met up and we decided to set up this charity that was going to help children, I guess. And I remember we sat down and we were kind of like, who's going to be the director of this company?
Egos. If you want to see egos, yeah, you just go around a bunch of 21-year-olds trying to set up a company by themselves. I remember I was like, I'm going to be the director. And I was like,
no, but do you know what's so funny about that? We voted for you to be the director because we were like, you are probably the most responsible guy.
I was like, damn. Like, I regretted that. And on top of that, because everyone was shareholders, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what's funny? We all set up as shareholders, but I think Companies House sent us a letter that we need a director, and that's when the vote came. It was like, okay, we need to appoint a director. We had no business. We had no business, and we're more concerned about who's going to be the director. Nonsense.
I remember it fully when Solomon was like, who do you think should be the director? I was like, I don't know, man. But then I was like, Andrew. He's like, yeah, I think Andrew.
Shalom was like, why? But why Andrew? Like, why? But you know what makes me laugh as well? We had no business in place. We're concerned about who's going to be the director. Again, different shareholders. And in terms of that, it's like we left that thinking, what are we actually doing here? But I always reflected on that moment, and I knew in the process of setting everything up, I was like, we're probably making so many mistakes right now that we have no idea about. And we're going to learn from this, but in this point in time, there's no one here telling us we're doing anything wrong.
True. So I think there's a good and bad part of that. Yeah. The good side is we were taking initiative. Yeah. Like we were actually going forward with an idea. The bad part of that is there was literally no idea. No idea. No idea on what to do at all. So yeah. So I guess So during that transition phase anyway, we sat down in the lobby after the Rich Dad event. We kind of put our brains together and said, who do we know that is in the property industry or has properties that we can learn from? And funny enough, someone we knew from the network marketing business had already bought property, had already kind of shared the fact that he was investing. Yeah. So yeah, we decided to give him a ring and ask him if he could teach us what he knew. Yeah,
and that was an example where we took initiative, because I remember we had a membership at a members club. It was like the Montcalm Hotel in Old Street. I love that membership. We were at the rooftop, and we always used to go there. You'd like invite people around, and then he also had a connection with the Gherkin, so we could go to the Gherkin as well. But I remember we invited him to come down that day, sat him down, and we were known as the Hackney network in network marketing. So he really liked us, just more of our energy, the fact that, look, we didn't come from the best of backgrounds, but we're taking initiative and we're just trying to make something happen, right? So I think he loved that like exuberance in us as kids, and the fact that we were resourceful, and the fact that we saw he had a number of properties in his portfolio, and we had no idea how to get in. We just said, look, we're not paying 20 grand to go and do a course with Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah. You're not going to see Robert Kiyosaki either. But while we know you and you're someone that we have in our network and we can contact you at any time, we want to, essentially for him to take us under his wing by teaching us the basics of getting into property. Yeah. And I remember the course we paid for was about £1,000 plus VAT.
Yeah, £1,000 plus VAT.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. Kamal Panchal, thank you very much.
Yeah. Honestly, you laid out literally the basics.
I think at the time as well, it was kind of like, I think because we saw 25 grand and then when he charged us £1,000, it was like, this is nothing in the comparison to what he's about to share with us. But I guess we didn't know really what we didn't know, because we didn't actually know what he was going to show us.
Yeah, we didn't.
But we just knew that I guess it was going to be beneficial. So yeah, we took that plunge. He offered, what was it, like a 2-day?
Yeah, it was like a two-day course intensive in Boreham Wood.
Boreham Wood, yeah.
You reminded me where we did it. So.
And literally, Kamal just broke down everything. So he broke down all the strategies, sourcing, buy-to-lets, HMOs, developments. Yeah. He didn't actually speak about rent to rent. So at the time, we were still kind of in the dark about rent to rent. But yeah, he literally, again, gave us a foundation of understanding about property. Yeah. And I guess that was, again, another kind of layer.
Yeah, we learned a lot of basics that day. Not even just the strategies, but credit. Right. Yeah, true. We had no understanding of credit. I first came to light of when credit first came to light in my life was when my mum warned me to not spoil it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what is credit? And that's because I signed up with a gym membership. So she's like, hey, watch out, your credit, don't mess up your credit. Like, it's really important. But
that's all she said.
That's all she said.
She didn't actually sit you down and
break me down what credit was.
My mum didn't either.
So you're scared about something that you don't understand, and you're getting access to things at a point where you're just basically fresh meat to the system, right? So they're seeing you get this thing. I remember taking out an iPad, and then it was with 3 Network, right? I'm sorry, 3 Network. But I just remember there was a time I was like, I'm sick and tired of paying these bills. Like why am I paying this? So I just stopped.
I did the same. So I took out a phone contract with, I think it wasn't EE, it would have been T-Mobile maybe. Yeah. T-Mobile 02, but I just remember one day, I was like, this recurring bill, I don't know why it's coming out my account every month. Like, I don't want to pay this anymore. So I just decided, I'm not paying it. And it's funny because I think that's so important as well. Like, as a kid, or I say getting into like late teens, you have access to credit, but we don't yet understand what credit is. So the quicker you can educate yourself about these types of things, the easier, I guess.
Yeah, so it's so important.
Life will be later on.
You look at it now, like these are things you have access to. It's not explained to you at that age, but you have access to it.
Exactly.
So you're basically playing a grown-ups game. Like, I was still at that point where I'm like, I want to have important letters coming to the house. Do you ever have that when you was a kid, where you saw letters coming to your house and say,
well, I guess you just want to have letters because you want something to open.
I want to be responsible for something. So now when I see a letter, I'm like, please, Lord, like, what is this letter is unfamiliar. Like, please don't tell me it's a ticket or something. Like, but it's funny how your mindset starts to change there when it comes to like what credit is, what you're responsible for, and seeing your credit file that day as well to see, like, I actually then saw this 3 mobile or 3G contract that I had on my iPad that I hadn't paid for a number of years, just have this default there.
I remember that as well.
I had to get rid of it. I remember that day I went to pay it off. That same day I went home, I paid it off. I was like, get this thing off my account. But then the fact that I had to stay on my file for 6 years from the day you paid it off.
People don't understand as well. Like,
and 6 years as a 22-year-old, you're thinking,
it's a long time.
But it's
a long time in general.
No, it's a long time, but 6 years, you're like, what? I'm never gonna get this off my file. But
default CCJs. That no one ever sat us down and explained this to us, and I think, that was definitely It's crazy as well that it took until that day, for us to understand.
For the penny to drop,
like credit. So that was a real big eye opener. So we did the course. Kamal gave us a really good understanding of property, and then after that, what happened?
So from there, I think we decided what strategies we wanted to go out and do. So I remember Solomon went out to do buy-to-lets. He decided to move to Manchester. Initially, he was just going from London to wherever he was going. I can't remember at the time. But then he just decided to go out to Manchester. And I thought he was only going to be there for a few months. It's funny enough, we're recording this in Manchester right now. And that's partly because we're up here ourselves in terms of business. But that kind of started with him again. It's funny, there's actually a trend there. Like, he tends to start something and then just, everyone's
a trendsetter.
Yeah, he is, definitely that. But we decided to go into sourcing. And even then, we're just still figuring things out, like going to networking events, meeting different people, telling them we're sourcers, etc., trying to find out their requirements. But it just got us, it was kind of like getting our feet wet. And then you decided to go and join an estate agent. So did I. I remember you was like, I'm applying for estate agents. I was like, I should do that too. But I thought to myself, because we were taught from a property investor, the mindset of a property investor, they almost looked at agents as like their enemy, but it's like, you need to make them your friend, but they are your enemy because they're working on behalf of the seller.
That was 100% my idea as well. I was kind of like, I see it from the investor side now, so let me try and see it from the agent side.
Exactly.
And also agents have access to all the deals. Like, all the deals literally come through to the agents first. And that was a really good move, I think, for both of us, because we then got a better understanding of the whole buying process, in terms of like, instruction, exchange, completion, words that I'd never heard before, but then started to make sense. And I think that was really good for both of us to get industry experience. Obviously, you went and worked for Foxtons.
Yeah, I went to work for Foxtons, which was crazy. I always say the part, like, I knew when the guy was going to be like, you're a yes, because he was talking about like what inspired you to get into property, and I said Monopoly. And I was telling him how we all used to play at that time as well. and he was just smiling, and I was like, yeah, this guy likes me. And then there was that part where you're networking in the communal area with the like managers and other people that are interviewing as well, which is also a bit intimidating as well, because you know who you're up against essentially. You're like, I'm competing.
It's a very interesting interview process, but I think it's really good though.
Yeah, it was good. And then I met the manager. So I was working at Virgin Active Crouch End around that time, part-time, and she was working at the Crouch End branch. So immediately we connected on the fact that we're both in Crouch End. We're talking about the area. We were talking about, just workouts, fitness, etc. And then she was just talking to me about property in the area as well. And she told me this when I got the job. She's like, yeah, when I saw you and I met you, I went straight to, I think it was the regional manager.
Oh, no way.
I said, I'm hiring that guy.
No way.
Everyone take your hands off him. He's mine.
See, that's so annoying, because I went to 2 Foxes interviews in Gunnersbury. I remember I took the whole trip all the way there, and I was like, yeah, these offices look so cool. I'm going to be so excited when I get my Mini.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't get the job.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I ended up, the Mini was fun, man.
Yeah. I ended up going to work for Home Finders, which was an independent agency. But again, looking back now, I feel like it was a really good insight, because I kind of got to learn like I don't want to say cowboy, but it's like the cowboy way of doing it. Just in terms of like the owner of the estate agency was like a really old guy. Like, let's say payday was on the 30th.
You told me that
he'll pay on like the 4th or 5th. Like, everyone be in the office like, what's going on? Have you got paid yet? And I remember it was just crazy. So then I remember one day he actually paid late, but I think this is when I quit as well. But he paid late, and I knew I was quitting, so I emailed him back, and I was like, hello, Haydar, like, you haven't sent my paycheck yet. Do you know, email back? He was like, don't you ever email me again, lad. I said, in my head, I was like, are you mad? The next day, I sent my explanation.
Wow.
I was like, I'm done.
No way.
Yeah.
But did you pay you though?
Yeah, he paid me. But he still took late. I was like, why does this guy take late? So hopefully after that, he learned. But I was just like, yeah, we can't be handling this again.
That is insane.
He's like, don't ever ask me about pay again. I was like, what?
Yeah, this guy, he's perfect for pre-COVID times, man. he would have been bashed online. There would have been a whole page about it.
But that's when I also realized, it was like, we put too much power in the hands of people that pay our salaries.
Yeah.
Because like, you got grown men stressing, like the manager of the firm is stressing, like, oh, I got my mortgage to come out, this to come out, but payday was taking long. So
So then obviously went into the agent journey. I think whilst we were doing that, we're still figuring out our way in the property side. I just remember working a lot of hours there as well. Like, it was like literally 8 till, I think I was working 8:30 till 8 every day.
8 till 8?
Yeah, 8 till 8.
What were they getting you? What were you doing during those hours? That's 12 hours.
Yeah,
a day.
you come in, there'll be a briefing, and then from like 9 till 12, you had to make 60 calls.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you had to make 60 calls. And then
like literally hit 60 calls.
Yeah, hit 60 calls.
Okay.
And then from 12 to 2, you'll do viewings. 2 to 4, no viewings are really happening then. So maybe like 2 till 5, no viewings are happening then. So you've got to come back, probably follow up on the calls that you did, emails. But because you've hit your calls for the day, you can still continue making more. But yeah, you kind of like a little bit more flexible there. But you have. Was it
they gave you that structure, or?
That's the structure.
That was the actual structure of the day. That's good though.
And then 5 till home time, you're doing viewings.
Okay. Yeah. So it's the later viewings for the people that just finished work, I'm guessing.
So you'll go around. I just remember hating driving manual. Because I was like, Crouch End, North London is very hilly.
Mini is manual.
Man. And I was just like, I'm getting an automatic car.
I just hated manual in general, but yeah. It's only after I got automatic, or I drove automatic, I said, I'm never going back.
That's where I am now. So like, but that was such a good experience for me, because I remember my first sell was to an investor. So actually a guy did the whole thing from the playbook, offered quite low, below market value. What I think he came up a little bit, but he said he's not going up any further. So I remember going back to him, trying to negotiate. I was like, look, I'm trying to work with you, man. Like, I understand it. I can see things through your lens, just come up a little bit. But he was like, nah, I'm just going to stay here. But if anything changes, my offer is on the table. I'm like, okay, cool. And then may have been like a couple of weeks later, I remember coming into the office in the morning, my manager's like, congrats, you got your first sell.
Oh, no way.
What? So I'm confused. And she was like, yeah, the vendor agreed to the price. So obviously the manager spoke to the vendor on my behalf, a vendor being seller, if people don't know what that means. And then, yeah, like, they agreed on the price. I was excited. I was like, wow, so this is how it works. Like, it actually does work. The way they're teaching you in these textbooks and, in these classes or courses, it it really has come to fruition.
Didn't actually mention that. Yeah, we were both in sales, not lettings. I think that was also important.
Yeah,
because I didn't want to be in lettings.
Neither did I.
It's funny though, because I think most people today actually want to be in lettings.
Yeah,
because they see it as consistent cash flow. Like most sales agents that I meet, they're always like, "Oh, I want to be in lettings. Like I want to move to lettings." So that's interesting. But for me,
I remember I liked sales because of the high-end houses I was able to see immediately.
Okay.
Right. But that wasn't what I was selling. You're capped at a certain threshold as a negotiator.
What was it?
Yeah. So you got to remember, Foxtons is like a big brand. So like there are like senior negotiators that have been there for a number of years and they've earned the right to be able to sell like £1 million plus homes. And there's quite a lot in North London. So I remember like my first week or two, you're shadowing. So I was shadowing some senior luxury negotiators. And they took me to some houses in like Highgate, Archway, and when I tell you, I was like, serious? I cannot believe what I'm seeing here. I remember we went on a viewing with this Russian lady. She didn't say much. She like, okay, good. These houses are like 4 million, 5 million pounds. I'm like, what? This is the height of Snapchat at that point. So I remember recording all this stuff, and people used to message me. It's like, what do you do? Like, are you in property? This is so sick. Yeah. But going to view those houses, seeing like I remember seeing a car, what's it? You know the underground car parks. So you come into the compound, and then there's this like circle in the ground.
Oh yeah, the one that actually the lift, the car lift, lift.
Again, blown away.
First time.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, this is actually just down the road. Like this isn't far from where I live.
Highgate is very. Was it Highgate?
Yeah, Highgate. Yeah.
Highgate is a very wealthy area.
And then some of these houses are empty. You find that a lot of wealthy people just literally buy houses and that's it. Like they kind of keep it there. It's like a bank for them, you know. And you start getting this exposure to it. So I was excited, but I also didn't see it as a long-term thing. I saw it as more of a case where I just wanted to learn a little bit more. In hindsight now, I still look back and I'm like, would I have stayed a bit longer if I had like a long-term view like I do now? I probably would have. Probably. I might have done like a 2-year stint. But I wasn't doing anything else. I had no social life. I wasn't going gym because 8 to 8.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do anything. I was tired by the time I got home. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting part about that as well is access to like different people in the market as well. Because obviously you're meeting people that are buying houses, potentially first-time buyers, investors, and it just gives you exposure to meeting different people.
Yeah,
I think for me, I was again very focused on developers. Like I wanted to meet developers and investors, and there was a lot of conversations that I had as well with those people, which were, you know, I can find you deals outside of this.
Yeah, basically.
Which is interesting because, like, look at obviously it's conflict of interest, big conflict of interest. Although I didn't actually find any deals or nothing actually went across the line, but that kind of just gave me an understanding for what they're looking for and then how I can service them. So I think that's where we were kind of like veering towards sourcing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But then obviously one of the main things that we're doing today is rent to rent. So it's not the only thing we're doing. Rent to rent HMOs in particular. Why rent to rent?
Yeah, so we used to actually look down on rent to rent back in the day, and I think it was because one, we were probably a bit ignorant. We didn't actually have specific knowledge on the strategy.
Yeah,
and then secondly, I guess for all the other reasons that most people don't get into rent to rent or maybe look down on it is you don't have equity in the property. If you obviously depending on how you structure it, because you can actually get equity if you agree to a lease option. I guess you're just a manager, right, of a property. And for us, what we were taught was the BRR strategy, which in that you hand it over to an agent, right? So we were kind of like, we don't want to manage property, we'd rather hand it off to an agent. And if we hand it off to an agent, then we'd actually not making any money. So yeah, that was our kind of basis for that. But what happened was I went to an event in Blackfriars. I remember Blackfriars Pin. It must have been in 2015.
16.
Yeah, maybe late 2000 or early 2016.
Yeah, maybe 2016, 2017. Possibly.
But yeah, there was a talk going on, and I always look at the two speakers because there's always two speakers on Pin. And I saw this guy, and it just said like collective
and I didn't really think too much into it. So I had no expectations. But when I got there, obviously the founder of the collective, who we know today as Reza Merchant, was doing a talk, and completely blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like, he started off doing rent to rent in Chelsea, leasing houses from landlords, subletting them to students, and then scaled it to a position where he bought a derelict property in Camden, turned it into a 50-bed HMO. Then he bought, or he developed, he did a ground-up development in Willesden Junction, which I think they created like 500 beds in that. And then the big project, which he showed at the event, was a 900-bed in Canary Wharf. And I was just like, this is crazy.
This is different.
But it wasn't just like the basis of the rooms. It was like the architecture and also the layout. So like cinema rooms, gyms, communal spaces, shared kitchens, and that for me, it was the community element that I was really sold on.
Yeah.
And I remember him actually saying, which obviously didn't come into fruition because the collective eventually went bankrupt, but I remember him saying that all the members would actually have a card. So if they wanted to, they could either live in Canary Wharf, or they could decide they want to live in New York, or they want to live in Germany. So that was an interesting part. And for me, it was the whole community aspect, but also the property element of it as well. And then I remember, I came back from that event, called you, and
I just remember you were just talking about it, and I was like, he's like, Andrew, we need to get into rent to rent. I was like, rent to rent though? Because we probably had a conversation about it maybe a week or so prior to it, actually, about would we do it. I was like, nah. And then it changed. So I thought, what's happened in a week and a half for you to somehow change your mind on this? But then I always take it back to the fact that I was bought into the vision. Do you know what I mean? I can now see a pathway. At that point, because with an investor mindset, you only really see it as this isn't an investment route. This is actually just a route for you to get in as a starter, right? But I'm like, why don't we just source then? But seeing it as an actual business, that's when I was like, oh, I'm actually more entrepreneurial in terms of wanting to build a business. And using property as the vehicle to do it was my main motivation. But I can now see that pathway like I spoke about just a few seconds ago. So when you started talking to me about it, I remember my mind was racing, running with ideas. Things were coming up. I was like just brainstorming. And I remember I had a friend of mine, it was Priska. She's really good at marketing. And kind of just almost helping you clarify your thoughts, right? And I remember going to tell her like what the idea is and how we want to go and do it from a co-living standpoint. And she's like, wow, this is actually amazing.
You know what was crazy as well is in that room, I've never seen like everyone so
blown
focused.
Away, yeah.
It wasn't even like everyone was blown away. I feel like everyone was some people were probably expecting it, but everyone was just quiet and focused and literally just listening to every word that this guy had to say. And at the end, like sometimes at the end, people have loads of questions. You know, when there's no questions, like everyone's just like mesmerized, like this kid. And it's funny because he didn't even really like come with.
Yeah, he wasn't like smartly dressed.
Yeah, he wasn't like smartly dressed. He wasn't really arrogant. It's just like he's just like a normal guy just talking about his story.
Yeah. And
I think I really resonated with that. Had a chat with him after, and I was just like, thank you for sharing your story. It was really inspirational. And then I remember I literally started going deep on the collective. I was researching them properly.
You started sharing all articles with me. Then I started doing the same thing and looking into them as well.
Went to Willesden Junction, had a look around there. I think it was a bit difficult though because the security was a bit mad.
Yeah.
But then obviously when Canary Wharf got built, I went to Canary Wharf.
Much more flexible.
And I managed to get like a proper tour of that building. And that's where I was like, okay, like this is actually the vision coming to life. And it was an amazing building. But the funny thing about that tour was I managed to speak to one of the girls that lived there, and she was like, oh, this place is great, but the only thing is like the rooms are really
too small. Yeah.
And I the reason why I remember that so much was because they went bankrupt. It just reminded me of that. And I was kind of like, probably after COVID, people realized they want more space.
Yeah, they want more space. Space was valuable, right? Especially during COVID at a time where people weren't really in communal areas as much, right? Like they needed their own space. So imagine being in your space for so long, having to be isolated, and then you're just in this box. You'll go mad.
Yeah, 100%. Like no garden, no outside space.
Nah,
it's a big thing.
It didn't make sense. So yeah, but I think that's one thing to actually even share with anyone that wants to get into rent to rent is like seeing the long-term view. Like everyone says, yeah, have the end in mind, but that's really important in terms of clarity. That's one thing we got from even going on masterminds and understanding, okay, let's get really, really clear on our goals and not just simply say, oh, we're trying to get here, but not understand the pathway. I keep saying pathway, but you know, that's kind of like what keeps coming to mind anyway. So taking it back, I think for me and for us in general, when we got into rent to rent, we had a vision. And I think any moment we come across a deal that aligns with where we're trying to get to, or we talk to someone about the vision and we can see how motivated or excited they get, I also get motivated by that. I'm like, actually, every now and then, even though you get lost in the weeds, you have to come up a little bit just to remind yourself, this is why we're doing what we're doing.
True.
And you want to make sure that the people that you come across are aligned towards that vision. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and build this big co-living, development or whatnot, but just have a path that you, or have a goal in mind, and then you can create the path towards getting there.
I think a big vision is it says it in the magic of thinking big. It's like when you have a big vision as well, you're kind of motivated to work towards it. So, you know, everything might be going on in the business on a day-to-day, but then when you actually look up and realize where you want to get to, that's what really gets you out of bed and
100%
puts the fire in your belly. So so we set up a rent-to-rent company, I believe shortly after that, called MillHub. You'll probably talk about the name. Like how the name came.
That's funny. Do you know what's funny? I'll say, because there was actually 3 of us when we started the business, right? So, but I remember that I was racking my name around in the brain. Racking my name around in the brain. Racking my brain around the name, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I don't recommend that to anybody. I was like, just get your business started and whatnot. I remember you kept coming up with the name Sourced with 2 Ds. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I was like, this name is nonsense. I was like, we're not coming up with this name. But I just went away and thought to myself, all right, what can we come up with? Community. Like, we're millennials at that time. We're the young ones, right? Like, everything's catered to us. There was no Gen Z term there. Even though Gen Zs existed, it's just like you were in school, primary school. So at that point, I'm like, something for millennials, a hub, just having something together. And it just, what I was doing, I was going on domain sites, comparing them to see, okay, is this name taken? That name's taken. I came up with like Millen Hub. I remember I had Millen Hub. Yeah.
I remember YMI as well.
YMI, yeah. I remember
what was YMI? Young
Millennials International or something like that. Oh, yeah. But you know what? I look back in it anyway, before I get back to like the story, how the name came about, I look back and I realized I was really good at copy. Like coming up with random names and stuff. That was actually a really good skill of mine. As long as I'm comfortable in that space, I'm thinking, yeah, I know exactly. Like, give me a moment or two, I'll go away and think about a few names and I'll come back. But then MillHub made sense because I could feel it's like it's a hub for millennials, so that made sense. And millennials were the ones that were renters. Yeah, you know. So that started to make sense. And then I thought, but what about when it's not millennials anymore? What about when it's the next generation? Then your business is dead. And I was like, well, it doesn't need to be just a hub for millennials. It can actually be a hub for 1 million. Like, if we can actually impact 1 million lives through our business, then that's where I saw MillHub coming around. And I just remember saying, I went online, saw domains, MillHub wasn't taken anywhere. I think it was like a company's house, it wasn't taken anywhere. Email address, everything. Yeah, it was just like even green. At that time, that was even a time where you could still probably get Instagram names without like hashtags or you know, like symbols in there. But I saw there was none. Like, you could just get MillHub on most social platforms. I was like, this is it.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
That's when I was sold into it. And I remember you guys were like, this guy, you're so obsessed with this name. But now you look back on it, you're thinking, that's like, do you know how much times people come up to me and say, that's such a good name. It actually sounds like a really cool business.
So many people have come to me as well. Someone came to me literally a month ago and was just like, yeah, it's a really good name. How would you suggest coming up with a name?
Yeah.
And now, looking back, I mean, although you say people shouldn't waste time doing that, I do think it's a good process. But as well, I think it's like, get proof of concept.
Yeah.
As at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the brand is so important. But at the same time, it's kind of like, don't get bogged down in that.
It's like WeWork, right? WeWork was initially Green Desk,
Okay.
right? And now we don't know what the Green Desk is, but
True.
we know WeWork, right? Even though it's kind of a separate company, but that's where the concept came from. So at that time, I think for me, again, it goes back to what motivates me. I feel like in some ways, once I have a vision, strategy and all of that stuff starts to come into play. But if there's no vision, then I'm like, I don't know if I even want to sign up to this thing. So that was big for me in terms of coming about the name. So that's how the name came up. I remember I was just racking my brain around in it in my room, like writing down different types of variations of the name. And once I landed on Millhub, that was it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So we started off literally reaching out to landlords in Reading. That's where we established our patch. I think we did try and start in Hackney.
Yeah, we
Or
did.
in
We
East
were looking
London.
in London in general, various London.
But it was a bit difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, you sourced a few deals in London,
Yeah, I
though.
did actually.
But yeah, we kind of decided on what happened. I moved to Slough,
Yeah.
and then I remember going to Reading and getting to Reading. It's so weird because like Londoners that don't go outside London just think everywhere else is like
There's
not
nothing
great.
there,
But I remember getting to Reading and just thinking, yeah, this is the place.
yeah, you called me and said, yeah, Reading's the place. It's almost like, what was it, when what's his name?
I'm going to say paid in full.
Yeah,
Alpo.
Alpo, yeah, goes to...
I mentioned this yesterday as well. So when I met Sule, I basically
DC,
mentioned...
yeah, DC, man, this is where it is.
I was
DC.
like, when Sule was telling me to come up to Manchester, that's how it felt.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
yo, DC, man.
DC,
we
man.
need to hit DC.
And I'll probably be like Ace at that time. It's like, nah, man, London's where it's at, man. It's like, no, we staying in Harlem, baby.
Yeah, paid in full. If you haven't watched that film, man, go
Yeah,
check
it's a
it
great
out.
film.
But yeah, so literally got to Reading, and then we just started our director landlord campaigns there.
Did we do a campaign somewhere else before, or was that our first campaign?
I think we
our
did
first
a
campaign-
London. I think we did a London
I
campaign.
feel so, because we didn't get nothing.
Nah,
Or maybe I don't.
I think we did a Hackney campaign.
We must have done something. But I remember going to events at the time, and a lot of people were like, I'm doing letters and I'm not getting anything. I remember we went to do that Reading camp. We probably got like 15 leads.
Yeah, that
from
was a
one
big
campaign.
one.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that was big. That was big. I think it was an interesting time as well, because I think it was just like HMOs were really popular at that time. But there was just a lot of landlords that I think resonated with our letter,
Yeah.
especially seeing it for the first time
Yeah,
as well.
100%.
So yeah, although our first deal came through Gumtree.
Yeah.
So the first deal that we ever got came through
But the
Gumtree.
deals after that started coming through the letter campaign.
Yeah.
So that was positive. But I remember getting the first deal and you was like, this is the first deal, man. We got it. Like, I know we definitely have this. I remember being at work at the time. I was thinking, is this really it? So I'm shook, man.
So nervous.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing as well. It's like when you actually get the keys,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, oh, nah, I actually have to deliver on the
Yeah.
on the service. Because I remember being scared and just talking to Kazim and being like, because he was like, yeah, it's a deal. I was like, are you sure it's a deal?
It's funny. It's like you want your first deal to when the deal comes, you're like, but do I? Like,
Yeah.
this is now practice. Now I have to, all the theory that I've learned, I need to now put this
Actually
into
put this
practice.
into action. So yeah.
But I think
remember that.
there's something to say. It's because it's now shining the mirror at yourself, and are you really going to do it? So
Can you really execute?
yeah, it's all good to. Everyone can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? Essentially.
That was an interesting process. So literally negotiating with the landlord. We did everything direct to vendor, and I think it was good for the first one as well.
Yeah.
Because we got an idea of
What
like
to
the whole
negotiate
contracts, what to negotiate for, what to get the landlord to cover, what we should cover, and it was a 4-bed house with a ground floor reception room. Actually, it had 2 reception rooms, but one of them was separated.
Yeah, so we converted.
Whereas the kitchen was kind of attached to the living room, right?
Yeah.
So we could rent it as a 5-bed, and yeah, like we ended up spending money that I don't think we needed to spend on that. Innit?
But again, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So like at that point, no course, we were just literally just reading a book and then just winging it. And then obviously we had some guidance there, but we kind of had guidance from Kazim right till we got the deal, and then some things after.
Yeah, kind of like after that, it was like
we were just scrappy in some points. Like
Yeah.
but we managed to negotiate in some parts. Like we had that painter that we had staying in the house.
Oh wow!
What did we pay him? Like £200 for like a week.
So we found We found a painter in Kent. He
Yeah.
recommended a painter because he
Yeah.
recommended a painter. So we found a painter in Kent. I literally went to Kent, picked him up, drove him to the house in Reading, and he stayed there
He stayed there for the week.
And he painted
He's like,
the
as
house.
long as I have a roof over my head,
Yeah.
then I'm fine.
That was it. That was crazy.
But it's funny
£200.
because we tried to do that again.
yeah,
for
we
another
did,
deal.
and it didn't really
And
work.
that did not work that way.
I mean, it worked out at the end, because he did finish the deal, but during the stress was real. We basically hired an alcoholic painter, Greg. If you're watching this, Greg.
He probably won't be watching it. I don't know if he even speaks English still. Right.
No, but he understood everything that we were saying, though,
yeah.
especially towards the end.
He made me go to Reading that day.
Yeah,
and I remember staying over. And that morning, like I literally woke up that morning and randomly I just decided, look out the window. I looked out the window. Who do I see just walking into the house? I see Greg. I remember I quickly ran to the front door. I'm still like in my boxes and everything. I was like, where you been? And he was just disoriented. He was so drunk. He's like, I just need to sleep.
But even the day, I think it was the day before that though, like I was knocking on the door, calling his phone, couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
I had to climb through the window
told me.
on the ground floor. I went to the top floor to one of the rooms and he's just sleeping. He's just sleeping.
Oh, wow.
And then that's when I really knew that.
But so basically, guys, the reason why this day happened is we actually felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
But one thing I would always advise is don't get involved in the politics that a contractor has.
Just don't get emotional. Like, don't be emotional. Because I thought that I should pay him because he's doing the job, when really I should have paid him at the end of the job.
No, but we paid him half, right?
No, but that's the thing though.
But we didn't pay him. Well, we chose to pay him because you thought that the head contractor wasn't going to pay him, right? And he was going to take everything whilst he was just sitting on his job. But that's none of our business. Like, that's one thing we learned is like, this is none of our business. And he knew that guy was an alcoholic. That's probably really why he didn't pay him.
Okay, but where there was a breakdown in communication, right? So I found a head contractor, but the head contractor spoke no English or very limited English.
But Greg spoke
okay English.
Got you.
So he's telling me, pay me and then I'll pay Greg. So I'm like, okay. But then I get to the property and Greg looks like he's on his face, like struggling.
Yeah.
So I'm like, pay Greg. And then he's like, no, I'll pay him at the end. So then I was like, no, we should pay Greg. But that was my downfall.
That day we learned, man. I think within 24 hours of paying him, this guy's AWOL.
I feel like he did send the money somewhere else because when I literally took him to the bank, the cash point, and there was no money. But he drank so much alcohol. I couldn't believe it.
But you learn from there actually anyway. And again, all these little things for us was what I call again is our course, right? Like when people would have gone out and bought a course, we paid for it in certain ways, right? So you might think you're evading it. You're going to pay one way or another, whether 100%. It's through your time or through your money or maybe both.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? But that still set the precedent of how we now conduct business today because we now know what to negotiate on in terms of like things like boilers, who's responsible for it. You might think, let me just get the keys because you're eager, but you've also got to think of your first deal like it's your 10th deal. Do you know? Because if you've done your 10th deal, like if you use your first deal like you're doing your 10th deal, you go in with a certain amount of confidence and you know what you're not willing to almost give up and accept, you know? So I think that was critical for us because now, once we had done our first couple of deals, we had that confidence going to landlords and say, hey, we're not going to pay you rent immediately. In the beginning, we're like, we have to pay rent from the day one. Many people think that. Yeah. No, there's ways you can negotiate, rent being paid later. And if you communicate it in the right way, then the landlord would understand.
True. Even no deposits, right? Because loads of people are like, oh, how do you not pay deposits? Yeah. And we're like, do you know what? It doesn't make sense, but you have to communicate that to the landlord.
100%.
And I think when you're direct to the landlord, you have the power to do that. Whereas if you're going for an agent, agents are going to slap that deposit on their standard.
Definitely.
So, yeah. But yeah, that deal, obviously our first deal, I believe it worked out well in terms of how we managed to get the property ready within a couple of weeks. Yeah. We had tenants move in within the month. So then that actually allowed us, I think we had a month rent-free period. So yeah, once all the tenants moved in, we were able to pay rent and good to go. We got a group of 5 people from, was it Virgin Media?
Virgin Media, yeah, they were in a grad scheme.
Yeah, I remember. Couldn't believe it. When they came and said we want to take the whole property, I said,
I remember. And then it happened again on our second. Like it happened again on our second. This one was Thames Water. Yeah. So it was like, oh, we've got something here. And then again, rinse and repeat and just continue with that process there.
Cool, man. So yeah, what would your advice be to, let's say, someone that wants to get into rent to rent today? Where would you advise them to start? Because obviously we get a lot of people reaching out to us asking how to
start. As in start in rent to rent or start in property in general?
I guess in property in general, because most people might not want to do rent to rent.
Yeah.
But they kind of want an in into the industry. So people either want to do rent to rent or deal sourcing, or they want to go directly into purchasing. Yeah. So what would you advise?
First, just get clarity on exactly what your goals are. one of the biggest things we took from going on a mastermind in Dubai last year was clarity. Like everyone there was business owners operating, decent sized businesses. I think the ones that were attendees were all like more or less like 6-figure businesses. And we were learning from 7-figure and 8-figure entrepreneurs. But we found at the end of the first day, we didn't have clarity, right? So I think anyone that's starting out in property in general is just get clarity on what it is that you want, and also clarity on your situation and where you are today, because rent to rent might apply to some people, but it might not necessarily apply to your situation. So take, for example, if you have no time whatsoever, right, but you're trying to find time to find a deal yourself, you're not going to find a deal yourself, right?
Yeah. I think when you mentioned that, actually, there was a really good thing that we actually saw. I think Kamal probably shared it with us, but it was like, if you have a lot of time and you have a lot of money, then this is the certain strategy you should be doing. Whereas if you have no time, or if you have a lot of money, or if you have no money but you have a lot of time, there's like certain strategies that you should be doing.
So I think that's definitely something you want to get clarity on. Like, how much time do you have available? How much money do you have available? Because if you have a lot of money available but you have zero time, you might not need to do rent to rent. You probably might be best off actually deploying that capital towards something, maybe finding someone that's actively out, that has the time to be able to go out and find those deals for you, and then you do a JV, which is a joint venture partnership, right? But then let's say, for instance, you have a bit of money and you have a bit of time, then rent to rent could probably suit you. So when I say a bit of money, it could be, $5,000, 10 grand, could even be less than that, right? That's laying around, and you could start your own rent to rent business. But get clarity, whatever that looks like for you. Probably might be useful just sharing, a breakdown of what that kind of diagram looks like as what strategies would align based on your situation, right? So like, if you have this amount of time, this amount of money, this is what we would recommend.
Yeah.
And that could give you clarity. So if you're starting today, the answer is, get clarity in your situation. And then if you decide that it's rent to rent, or you decide on whatever strategy it is, go and get as much information as possible, because there's a lot of free resources out there. Like, we've got even a free guide where it just gives you like a quick start, high level of what you need to do in order to get your own property business set up. And you can easily follow that. But you can go online on YouTube, watch as much content as possible. There's podcasts out there, there are books that you can read. Again, we started our own rent to rent business on a book. Not that we would recommend it, but it helps give us some clarity in terms of how to get set up.
It gave us more theory than I guess we had
100%
at the time. But again, when it comes to the practical, it's like, it's easier if you have somebody there to kind of step you through everything. But yeah, the quick start guide was a good plug there, I think. So hopefully it will be done by.
I'll probably leave a link in the
put
bio
it in the description.
On the description. I keep putting it in the bio. I think this is Instagram.
So yeah, check it out if you can.
But I'd say that. And then the other thing is, then identify a couple of people that might be in your network through. It could be networking events. It could be people you see online who's in a position or has been able to do something you've been able to do, because it's a proven method. Like, one thing, again, we learned from masterminds we've been on, entrepreneurs that we learn from, we're not creating or reinventing the wheel here. It's been done many times. So like, why would you try and waste all your time thinking, I want to be different from everybody and, create my own path? You're still creating the path, but you're just wasting time.
Yeah, true.
So if someone's done it, they can literally just give you the blueprint, follow each step and acquire that first deal, and just do it again and again, get to a certain amount, and then it might not necessarily be rent to rent that you want to go down anymore. You might have those rent to rents there as a bit of extra cash flow, and then you want to get into purchasing. So you could be purchasing HMOs, but because you've been on the operator side, you now know what needs to be done from an operation standpoint. So that might even help you vetting HMO agents, or you could have systemized everything to a point where you're now managing your own HMOs through your business, but you're not necessarily working in the business. You're
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's a good piece of advice. I think, I'd probably say exactly the same. What really, really helped me though, I think, was the networking events. Yeah. Because again, I met Reza there. I met many other investors that I still know today as well. Tom, met Tom there.
Tom. Oh yeah, Tom. Yeah, Tom.
But yeah, again, like those relationships that you build with people at these events will actually hold you in good stead kind of later on in your journey as well, because you'll be able to lean on people, ask them questions. So Yeah, that would be my advice. And then also the property game is so different now that there's just so many people talking about so many different things that I feel when you have clarity, when you know what it is that you want, it's kind of like you want to filter down and then literally just focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Because if you're getting, it's very easy to have shiny penny syndrome, where you're literally, everything looks good. And I feel like that's where we were at the beginning.
Yeah.
I was like, sourcing seems good, but then buy to let seemed good, but then HMOs and developments, but then like really nailing down on one specific strategy.
That's a key thing you actually mentioned, because one thing I always find is like someone will always ask you, what's the best strategy? And again, goes back to the whole saying, each strategy is different and it could be dependent on you and your circumstances.
It's always dependent on you.
So you need to get clarity on that, right? Like sometimes it might not even be best for your own skill set. You might not want to deal with tenants. So why would you go down that route, right? Like you might think it's a weakness. It could just be something that you shouldn't do at all.
Funny enough as well though, sorry to cut you off, but when I left you, when we were here the other day, I bumped into a girl who was also asking me for rent-to-rent advice. So I met her at a networking event and she was asking me, how do I get started in rent-to-rent? I literally like kind of gave her the blueprint. She went out, contacted agents, and then I asked her the other day, are you still doing rent-to-rent? She said, nah. she's like, I can't be bothered with rent-to-rent. Like, she was like, I'm not getting any agent saying yes, or any landlord saying yes. So I was like, clearly she doesn't like the rejections, but I was like, what is it you're going to do now? She was like, I think I might just do a flip or development. So I was like, okay. So she's now kind of going through that process of elimination. But and the thing is, that's a big thing because perseverance is key. I think you need it in business anyway. If you think you're going to avoid it because it's easier to get one deal there, you're going to learn the hard way later on. Because it's going to be the same with flips. It's going to be the same with development.
It will be probably through raising investment, right? Because you can only, in this property game, you're only as good as the money that you can raise or the money that you have available. So, and I mean, not you personally, is the money that you have access to. So let's say, for instance, if I only have 100K in my bank account and I'm only thinking of what I can do, my resources are limited. But now if I need to go out and raise capital and I still know what I'm talking about, but people are saying no to me, I'm going to think this thing is impossible. Then I'll stop there and my journey's capped. So it doesn't matter what it is you're doing. You kind of need to learn that muscle and strengthen that muscle of rejection.
100%. And I think we learned that actually from network marketing.
We used to get no's all the time,
every single day, and that was really kind of what shaped or built our resilience to literally go out into not just business but property and be able to handle the rejections. Because
what do you think that, actually better way of phrasing this question is, what do you think are some of the common mistakes you see people making when they start out in property?
It depends on the strategy, right? But I feel like everybody kind of gets into this not having a business hat on. Like even the fact of this whole podcast being called Property Founder, that everybody might just say I'm a property sourcer or I'm a property developer. But I just think in today's day and age, I think you need to be aware of all the different strategies, but also from a business perspective, it's kind of like having a business hat on and coming into this, like, because when I actually break rent-to-rent down to people, there's a point in which I notice that they're like, oh, like this is a business. Do you know what I mean? Like I'll show them, and then most people think, you just get a property, you just tenant it, and then that's it. Whereas really like the day-to-day management of stuff, if 100%. You don't have the right systems and processes in place, then it's going to be hard work. 100%. Whereas let's say now we've got, a virtual assistant, we've got systems and processes in place that I believe if we were to employ another member of staff tomorrow, we could literally like plug and play. And they would know what was going on and they could kind of operate from there. But essentially, rent-to-rent is a human resources business. It's a HR business. You need to employ people, whether they're VAs, virtual assistants, or if they're actually on the ground. But it's basically a management agency, and management agencies require people. So I think that's what I would say is having a business hat on scares people. Like sometimes, especially with rent-to-rent. And then I think the second thing is like not getting enough knowledge before they actually get into something. So now like everyone's a sourcer now, right? loads of them are not compliant.
Yeah.
Like loads of them have literally just been on a course in fintech and just find something and pass it on to an investor. Where like you might be able to get a few deals across the line that way, but like, if you want to really take this seriously, you need to get kind of all your ducks in a row before you start kind of operating.
Another common mistake, even to add to that, is trying to do too many different strategies at once, right? Like once you set on that strategy, you can go and try and error and figure it out. But you usually hear, especially with the rhetoric online, about like different strategies. No, this one's dead. This doesn't work. This is terrible. Don't do this. And you actually find there's a pro and con to every single strategy that there is. Like it doesn't matter what you're going for. I know people that are doing HMOs, like buying, purchasing HMOs, and there's other people like that's a waste of time. I'd rather do bigger deals like developments. But then some people's like developments are too slow. I want quick money. I want to do flips. There are people that aren't even in the industry say flips are too slow, right? You're still waiting about 6 months to get your money, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So
it's so true. It's like everyone's doing what you should be doing.
Yeah, literally.
That's what it seems. But as well, I think the way the game has changed is now that everyone's selling something. Everyone has something to offer.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of they're more so drawing people into that specific strategy, because now when people talk to me about rent to rent, it's mainly about service accommodation.
100%.
Whereas I'm like, I wouldn't suggest you start in service accommodation. I would suggest you start with HMOs.
Yeah.
It's more stable income. You've got tenants that pay rent every single month, guaranteed, as opposed to, service accommodations seasonality.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I actually know someone, so I met someone recently that told me they, like, with their service accommodation business, what they do is they split it with their partner. So their partner actually deals with service accommodation solely, and then they deal with another property strategy altogether. So interesting. It makes that person just dedicated to that part of the business. So let's say even if you wanted to do HMOs and service accommodation, now I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if let's say for instance someone wanted to be designated to that part of the business and that's all they do, then completely fine. But where you are kind of mixing the two, the resource,
especially at the beginning anyway.
Yeah, especially at the beginning. I wouldn't recommend it.
I would say at the beginning, choose one and stick to it.
And why I say HMOs for like the one to go with is because of the consistency of the income. You just know you've got your tenants in there, they'll pay. Even if someone's moving out, they're not moving out and they're gone the next day. They'll hand in their notice. It gives you about 4 weeks to be able to replace that tenant. It can be done in the space of a week whilst the tenant is still living there. So it's still pressure, but it's not as crazy as it is with service accommodation. And I wouldn't recommend just doing service accommodation and having no income either, right? Because those down months, you won't make it to the end of that year. So
yeah, true. Service accommodation is very like you just have to annualize it.
Yeah,
there's no way you can think that a really good month is kind of how it's going to be every single month.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel sorry for the people that take on essays in summer. It's like at the height, they see the great period, and then it comes to like January, February, March, and it's like
when it's depressing and you're not getting any vitamin D. You realize that everything's doom and gloom.
But cool. Yeah, man, I feel like we've been on for quite a while.
Yeah, we have.
Do you want to probably wrap it up?
Yeah.
I think what do viewers want to see from us? What questions do you have?
Yeah, I'll just say any like in terms of comments, just leave in the comments what you would like to see from us. Today is just an episode for us to kind of share a little bit more about us, ourselves. As I said, we always get questions as like, I've had questions like, oh, how did you and Ross become best friends? I was like, firstly, I don't even have a best friend. I don't have a best friend.
My wife asks me this all the time. She's like, who's your best friend? I'm like, I don't do best friends. Like,
I don't do best friends. It's commitment. It's extra commitment. It's unnecessary commitment. Like, it's like, now I have a best friend. You are the best friend of my other friends. And I now have to fulfill a role that there's a description that is...
guys are built different, man.
Built different. Like, it doesn't make sense for me. So anyway, but yeah, for the record, we're not best friends. We're childhood friends that grew up and we're good friends. So, but yeah. But you can still let us know in the comments what you'd like to see. Again, we're going to have some people that will be visiting as well. So like some of our friends that are in the property game, so other property founders. So if you're a new property founder, if you've been in it for a while, just let us know if you want to also jump on. We're definitely going to be...
I've actually got an idea of some good guests that we can actually get on this. So yeah,
some really cool ones.
Watch this space, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, and our next episode will be out in a year.
But yeah,
Cool.
hit that subscribe button.
Oh yeah, we have to do that. So
hit the
and
like.
subscribe.
Yeah, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Make sure you subscribe.